All right, guys, today's video I am going to talk about the door hinges on a 55, 56, 57 Chevy car, the front door hinges. Because four doors, the rear door hinges are made completely different than the front. And this is the ones I'm talking about right here. Now, these cars are known for a squeak that you get when you open the door. It is a quirk that these cars have, and it is a Tri-5 Chevy thing, I promise you. So, I have never claimed to be an expert on these cars, ever. I've had a bunch of these cars, but there's people that's had more and done more. So, anyway, if you do not know what I'm talking about, you've pretty much got to own one to know what I'm talking about. It's a squeak right here. Listen. That sound right there. So, the hinges, the way they're made, I'm getting ready to show you a door hinge off the car, and I'm going to show you why they make that sound. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you have a car that does not squeak when you open the doors, there's three reasons probably why. They are severely worn, somebody has modified them, or they have a lot of rust on them. Now, a car's been sitting for who knows how long, gets a little rust developed on there. When you open the door, you might not hear it until those hinges are used quite a bit and they start getting shinier. Then they start making a sound. So I'm going to show you a hinge right here. But right here, I've got my wife's four-door, and the hinges, I put new pins and stuff in it and bushings. I can get that to do that just sitting there. Now here's the reason why they squeak. So this is one hinge off a 55 Chevy, and they're all the same on all 3 years, 5, 6, and 7, and they are the same on all the cars. Nomad, convertible, hardtop, sedan, sedan delivery, station wagon, all of them. I don't know about trucks. I've never owned a Tri-5 Chevy truck, but I just know about the cars. So right here is a spring plate that has 2 rivets in it, and when I turn this over, there's another one right here. So when I flip this way, you can see these spring plates the way they're made. See how they hang out? So I have seen several different ways of these to be modified to not get a squeak, because people don't like that squeak. Now it makes me wonder, back when these cars were new, what they did. And it may be the paint. There's so much paint on there that they don't squeak for a while. But once they start getting shiny, bare metal, that's when the squeak probably is going to be the worst. But I'm assuming from back in the day, like if you went to the dealership in 55, 6, or 7 to buy one of these cars new, they were probably greased, I'm assuming, to keep them from making that sound. I don't know. Again, I'm not an expert, but I can't imagine shelling out money for a brand new car back then and open the door and have a squeak. But anyway, those plates, they stick out there, and what they do is they rub on the side of the hinge arm right here. See that shiny metal right there? Same on this side. See how it's shiny? Now look how severely worn this is. See how far in that's worn right here? This one's pretty bad. I've seen them worse than this. So if your car doesn't make a sound when you open the door, you either have fresh paint on there, you've lubricated them, somebody's lubed them, which lubrications doesn't last very long, or they're severely worn, or they've modified them. Now, I have seen some stuff. I'm going to run you through that. Now, on my wife's four-door, this was interesting. Somebody took black vinyl electrical tape and wrapped it around this part of the hinge, wrapped it around and around and around. Now, when I took the hinges out of the car, the tape was still on the front and the back of the hinge, but up here it was completely gone because it just wore it off. But I would think that would have probably worked pretty good for a little bit. But keep in mind, your driver's side door hinge is the one that's going to get the most wear, because it's going to be, you're going to drive the car, you got to open the driver's door. You know what I mean? But anyway, another one I seen, somebody had taken what looked like probably a pair of pliers, channel locks, vice grips or something, and they just crushed this spring plate right here. And they crushed it. And what that's going to do is pull this plate closer to the side of the hinge. So basically what I'm telling you is the less tension that's on this hinge, the less sound you're going to get out of that squeak. So, I mean, you can tell how far those springs are in. It's going to drag on that hinge. Now, the reason that's there, when you open the door all the way, the door will stay put. So you have to actually give it, some pressure to pull the door back closed. If you remove these all together, the door would just want to automatically fall back to the closed position. I don't know that that would really be a problem because the door's not probably heavy enough on flat ground to hurt your, hit your leg or something. Now, no doubt if you parked the passenger side of the car down in a ditch on an angle and you tried to get out of the door, it's probably going to suck because that door's going to want to automatically try to, put weight against you. But here's the one that's always stuck with me. This was back in the 90s and it was a parts car, 55. When I took it apart, this person must have really hated that squeak. He only did the driver's side. He did not do the passenger side. He had removed one of the spring plates and got rid of it. There was nothing there. It was just two empty holes. And I could see chip marks in it, so he probably used like a hammer and a chisel to get them off there. He never removed the other one, and I don't know to this day how he cut it. I don't know if he used a die grinder. I don't know. But that part of the plate right here, he had actually thinned it. He brought it up this way and up toward the camera here on both sides. So it was a very thin little piece of steel that was all that was left. So obviously, less surface area of metal on metal contact, the quieter it's going to get. You know what I mean? But anyway, that one always stuck with me because somebody actually put some thought into that. You know what I mean? And it makes me wonder, like if you didn't want the squeak in your car and you didn't want to just constantly lubricate the hinges, I wonder if you could just remove one of those on each hinge or remove both on like the bottom hinge and leave them on the top. I don't know. But if you've never owned one of these cars or you've recently bought one of these cars and you don't know that quirk, that's the sound you're going to hear. Once that gets to metal on metal, shiny metal, you're going to get that squeak. Unless they are worn severely, been monkeyed with, or they got rust and paint on them. Rust or paint. Now, I learned a lesson on my first car. It was from the School of Hard Knocks. So my first 55 I built, I was probably 18 or 19 years old. And it was my second one because the first one was technically going to be my parts car, and I just threw it together and started driving it until I finished part way on the other car. And then I stripped it apart and used parts on the other car. But I painted the car black and red two-tone. The roof, the back half of the car was black, the front was red. So the hinges squeaked. So what I did, my dad had an aerosol can of Croil, I think it was called, if I'm even saying that right. It was like PB Blaster or WD-40. I went in there, both doors, man, and I hosed them. I just hosed those hinges, and, a bunch of that crap was just running down inside the pocket down here of the cowl, which is not really going to hurt anything. But anyway, when you got inside the car, guess what you smelled? Croil. That stuff stinks, and it took about 2 months with leaving the windows down for that smell to get out of there. And the funniest part was it lasted about 2 days before they started squeaking again. Now you got to keep in mind, the more that door is opened, the faster that lubricant is going to go away. So that car at that time was my only car. I drove that car every day. I was in and out of it all the time. So that door got to work out every day. So that's why it didn't last very long. But if you got a car that you hardly ever drive it, you can put some lube on there or grease or something, and no doubt it might last a little longer. But in a daily driver scenario, you're going to need to lubricate it often. But I would not recommend a stinky lubricant because the smell ends up getting in the car, and I'll show you why. When I open this door hinge, you can see inside the car right there. So from the factory, they have a little cardboard panel that goes in here called a kick panel that goes on here. And it's just a little cover is all it is. This is all open right here. Like I can reach right there and move that hinge. So I could reach up in there and move this one as well if it was closed a little more. But it's all open up in behind the dash up in there. So that smell is just permeating up and getting in the car. So nothing worse than Croil smell inside your car in the summer with a black roof with the sun cooking it with a black interior. And that was even if the windows were down. Oh man, it stunk. My wife wouldn't ride in the car because the smell gave her a headache. So hard lesson to learn. So keep that in mind. But if you don't want that squeak, if you're going to build one of these cars, you're going to have to do something to them hinges to keep them from doing that. If you don't want your doors to stay open when you open the door, you know, what I'm saying is you can basically remove these plates if you wanted to, but your door is going to want to automatically close. But I mean, honestly, I would try maybe leaving one. But when you've got two hinges on one side and you've got that wide of a metal strip, two of them on each door hinge, that's that much surface area 4 times metal on metal. So, you know, good luck. But for me, I like the sound. It's part of the ownership of Tri-5s. And when you've had them most of your life, like I have, it's just one of the quirks about the cars that I love. I grew up with these cars. Some people aren't into Tri-5s. When I was a kid in the 70s, there was still quite a few of these on the road. My brothers had them. My uncles had them. My mom and dad had them. But anyway, it's just a sound that they have, and you're going to have to do some work to get rid of it. But and I'll tell you this, you know, when you have a Tri-5 Chevy, you know other Tri-5 Chevy people. And I know lots of these guys that they also like that sound. It's not just me that likes that sound. If you went to, say, the Tri-5 Chevy Nationals, and you went and asked 10 Tri-5 Chevy owners if they liked that squeak or they didn't like that squeak, you're going to get mixed answers. I promise you. It's not just going to be one guy say, oh yeah, I love it. It's going to be a few. So it's not just me. But I will tell you, again, I am not an expert on these cars. But if you did not want the squeak and you don't want to modify the hinge, I would say grease would probably be your best bet. But if you want it to stink and give you a headache, Croil is your best bet. But anyway, if you have a way that you get the doors not to squeak without a smell, or modify them, or whatever, if you did modify them, comment down below, because there's going to be guys that don't want that sound. You know what I mean? And keep in mind, again, if you drag a car out of a field, it's going to have probably rust built up on there, and you might not notice it opening and closing the door several times. It's once that gets the paint worn off, the rust worn off, and it starts getting shiny, that's when you're going to get your metal on metal sound. So anyway, I hope it helps people out. Thanks for watching.